Hi, I'm Daniel, and today I have an interview with this guy. But what happened to my set?
I chose these chairs because I'm in charge now.
Well, okay, so I brought you here today because I wanted to talk to you about last week.
What about last week?
Really acting out.
Well, I'm evil. That's my character. I hate people, I like burning things down, and I want people to feel as bad as possible.
Interesting. Very interesting. Because for somebody in charge, you really are kind of evil.
Again, I said it, it's my character. I like seeing when people cry. I like when socks are wet. I'm just evil.
So you have no character.
No, it's literally my character. Where's my script? It says in the script that I'm the evil guy. I'm the evil guy. I'm the evil guy.
But I believe he's mistaken. You're mistaken. See, to be someone in charge, you have to have good character. Do you understand what that means? Character? Like to show love or grace or joy. Like you don't have to be evil.
You're saying I don't have to be evil?
No, you're just playing one on TV.
See, that's starting to make a lot more sense. Because I don't really like it when people's socks are wet or when people cry.
Right. Nobody does.
So you're saying when you have character, it kind of gives people hope?
Absolutely. You see, when God's people have character, there's hope. This has been an interview with an evil guy.
Not actually evil, just a guy playing an evil character.
Last week, we learned all about Joseph's character, right? We learned that he was hardworking, that he was wise, trustworthy, and responsible. And those are all signs of good character traits. And when God's people have character, there is hope. Now, you might be thinking, Miss Courtney, you must have not have been paying attention very well because last week we ended with Joseph being thrown into prison for something he didn't even do. And you're right. But remember, guys, even though Joseph is in prison, he has the same character traits that he has before, which is hardworking, wise, trustworthy, responsible. And when God's people have character, there is hope. Are you ready to read about that hope? I sure am. So at the end of Genesis 39, we read this. The warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything, and the Lord was with him and caused him to succeed in everything he did. Wow, did you guys catch that? The warden put him in charge of all the prisoners and everything. And when the warden did this, he said, "Shh, I don't have to worry anymore. I can kick back and relax because I know that Joseph has good character because we already know that Joseph is wise, hardworking, trustworthy, and responsible. And the warden could see that too. So even though Joseph is in prison, there's hope because he was put in charge of everything because of his character. And when God's people have character, there is hope. So a little while later, we find out that the Pharaoh, which is the king of Egypt, is really angry with two of his staff members. He's super angry with the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. And so he throws them in prison. Now, which prison do you think they ended up in? The one that Joseph is in charge of. Even though Joseph's a prisoner, he's still in charge of other prisoners. So he has an opportunity to make a difference, to step in and see a need and meet it. After the chief cupbearer and the chief baker were in prison, they each had a very alarming dream. And it really terrified them because nobody could interpret it. As Joseph was coming by to check on the prisoners, he noticed that they're worried. And remember, guys, Joseph has a good character. So he's not just gonna brush that off. No, he's gonna check in on them, because of his good character. And when God's people have character, there is hope. So Joseph asked them, hey, why do you look so worried? And they go on to tell him that they have had some dreams. Now, the chief cupbearer is the first one to share his dream with Joseph. Let's find out. In Genesis 49, we read this. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream first. In my dream, he said, I saw a grapevine in front of me. The vine had 3 branches that began to bud and blossom, and soon it produced a cluster of grapes. I was holding Pharaoh's wine cup in my hand, so I took a cluster of the grapes and squeezed the juice into the cup. And then I placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. Okay, so now Joseph's going to interpret it. This is what Joseph says. This is what the dream means. The 3 branches represent 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you to your position as his chief cupbearer. And please, Joseph's saying, and please remember me and do me a favor when things go well for you. Mention me to Pharaoh so he might let me out of this place. For I was kidnapped from my homeland, the land of the Hebrews, and now I'm here in prison, but I did nothing to deserve it. Whew. So Joseph is able to interpret the chief cupbearer's dream because God allows him to. So Joseph asked for one thing in return. He asked for the cupbearer to do him a favor. He doesn't scream it, demand it, or yell it at him. He just asks. He says, please remember me. Please tell Pharaoh about me because I'm stuck here in prison for something I didn't do. See, Joseph didn't have to interpret that dream for the chief cupbearer, but he chose to, and it gave that chief cupbearer hope. Because when God's people have character, there is hope. Now, unfortunately, the chief baker's dream wasn't so good, but Joseph chose to be honest in a moment that was hard, again showing his character, and he revealed to the baker that his dream wasn't looking as good for him. Now, I know that seems hard to find hope in, but Joseph being honest, especially in times of hardships, is huge, guys. It tells us a lot about his character. And when God's people have character, there is hope. Well, 3 days later, just as Joseph had interpreted, the Pharaoh had a party and restored his chief cupbearer back to his position. Woohoo! Right? And do you think that chief cupbearer was like, hang on, Pharaoh, I have to tell you something really, really important about a guy named Joseph, and he interpreted my dreams and told me that this would happen, and he asked me to remember you? Do you think he did that? Or do you think he forgot? He forgot. Guys, he forgot about Joseph. Do you want to know for how long? He forgot about Joseph for 2 whole years. 2 whole years, Joseph was left in prison for something he didn't do. But remember, Joseph has character. And when God's people have character, there is hope. 2 years later, Pharaoh has 2 dreams, and these 2 dreams really worry Pharaoh. He doesn't understand them, so he calls out to all the town for somebody to interpret his dreams, but nobody is able to. Nobody except Joseph. And in this moment, the chief cupbearer remembers Joseph and tells Pharaoh about him. So Pharaoh sends for him immediately. And Joseph comes to interpret the dreams. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once, and when Joseph arrived, Pharaoh said this, I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell me what it means, but I have heard that when you hear about a dream, you can interpret it. But Joseph replies this way, it is beyond my power to do this, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease. Hang on. So this is Joseph's big moment to shine, to get out of prison, to interpret Pharaoh's dreams, and instead of taking all the credit, he gives glory to God. That says a lot about Joseph's character, doesn't it? And when God's people have character, there is hope. So Joseph goes on to interpret Pharaoh's dreams. He tells Pharaoh this, that your dreams both mean the same thing, which means that it's sure to happen. There will be 7 years of prosperity, meaning 7 years of overproducing at harvest time, reaping in so much more than is needed. Everything will be going wonderfully for 7 whole years. But after those 7 years are up, there will be 7 years of famine. And famine, guys, that's where there's nothing to eat. People are starving and there's nothing you can do about it. But Joseph just doesn't stop there. He offers some wisdom to Pharaoh. He says this. Therefore, Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man to put in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh should appoint supervisors over the land and let them collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 good years. Have them gather all the food produced in the good years that are just ahead and bring it to Pharaoh's storehouses. Store it away and guard it so that there will be food in the cities. That way, there will be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come to the land of Egypt. Otherwise, the famine will destroy the land. So Joseph, having just interpreted the dreams, knows exactly what Pharaoh should do because he's wise and he has good character. And when God's people have character, there is hope. Pharaoh is so blown away by this, by his plan and knowing what to do, that Pharaoh says, who should do this but you? So he appoints Joseph to be in charge. He goes on to say that only Pharaoh is higher than Joseph. So now we've seen Joseph go through this crazy, intense adventure from start to finish. From his brothers hating him, plotting to kill him, throwing him into giant pits, selling him into slavery, for him being wrongly accused, being thrown into prison, forgotten about, to finally he's in charge. And he's not just in charge, guys. He's bringing hope to the land because he has a plan to save Egypt from the famine that is coming. See, when God's people have character, there is hope.
Can you imagine how Joseph was feeling? He was sold into slavery. He was sent to prison from Potiphar's house. He was forgotten by the cupbearer. He sat in prison for 2 years and he didn't even do anything wrong. I mean, he could have lied, He could have lied to get himself out of it. He could have tricked people, but he didn't. He chose to maintain good character, to keep showing good character. And when he did so, it provided hope that God would put him where he needed to be. And that hope wasn't just for him, it was for all. Pharaoh saw his wisdom and his ability to provide clear direction on how to save Egypt from the famine. So in doing so, and being able to interpret the dreams, Pharaoh entrusted him with preparing for this famine by saving the food so that when those 7 years came, Egypt wouldn't see destruction because they had clear direction. And that direction came at a perfect time because what could have been a really dark and hard year for Egypt was filled with light because Joseph's character, his wisdom, his ability to hear from God all came together to save that nation. The world can sometimes feel like a giant darkness hovering over us. Sometimes we feel we can't see the bright side of a situation. But when we keep turning to Jesus for the answers, when we continue to have good character and our hope shines like a light. And every time our character is tested and we persevere, another light will turn on and shine. We get to a point where our hope and light can be seen by those around us, giving them hope in a dark place. We get this chance today because Jesus came and he died for all of our sins. He took the weight of all the things that we could do. In a very dark time, he died with them. But then when he came back, he brought back a way for us to be with God. He brought back hope. He brought back a light. And with that light, we get to share that light with others. We get to bring hope to other people. We get to tell them about who Jesus is. Because when God's people have character, there is hope.
Today we learned that when God's people have character, there is hope. And we learned that through the story of Joseph. And I wanted to see how well you guys were paying attention. And so I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and let's see how many you can get right. Question number 1. Who were the 2 people that Joseph interpreted the dreams of? Was it A, Chuck and Danny? Was it B, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker? Or C, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Miami Dolphins? Give you a second to answer. The answer is B, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. Question number 2, how long did the chief cupbearer forget about Joseph? Was it A, 2 days? Was it B, 2 months? Or was it C, 2 years? Give you a second. You're right, it's C, 2 years. And our final question is just a straight up fill in the blank. When God's people have character, there is blank. Did you get it? It's hope. When God's people have character, there is hope. And hope is kind of like turning on the light, so to speak. And so to remember the bottom line all week long, I want you guys to find a sticky note and a marker. And you can use your favorite color marker. And on that, write the word hope. And then stick it underneath your light switch. That way, every time you walk out of your room or turn on your lights or whenever it is, you can remember that when God's people have character, there's hope. And you might even say out loud what character action, what thing you would do that day to help bring people hope. Because remember, when God's people have character, there's hope.
Stars that cascade by. He has the man who sits and wonders why. Just like a melody, his touch, it weaves through you and me. Fingerprints like a brand, every bit written by his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. Brothers and sisters, in today's news, God is not dead and the world is still in his hands. You see, he holds us tighter than the sun that lights our face. He holds us tighter than the gravity that holds us in place. Tighter than the rhyme and the melody, tighter than the shoreline that kisses the sea.